We're going to talk about the economy, the state of the economy. It's become really very, very clear that Donald Trump does not have a path forward. It's been very, very clear to me that the attempt the Republicans have put on to try and solve the issue of to try and solve the issues that we have in our country in terms of debt don't work. So basically, we have Donald Trump came in and he's like, we're going to try this revolutionary new thing, which was not revolutionary. And they were going to, add these tariffs and go on a ass kicking spree around the world. And Trump did that. He went on and threatened a bunch of countries, got nothing for it. And he started implementing these tariffs only to find out the exact reason why he couldn't do them. Now, I think it's abundantly clear to me that if he left the tariffs at 145% and they stayed there, we would be facing economic collapse in a matter of 2 months. He has, however, backed it down, so we're paying about 9% more tariffs. So it's going to reduce this purchasing power of the United States by a family of four, right, $3,000. But I think it's interesting because at the same time we're watching that happen, we're watching the budget bill go on. And these two, I think, are really interlinked because Moody's downgraded the credit rating. They did this in large part because the United States is trying to pass this bill that just adds more debt, that does not address the problems or the situation that we're in. And it's becoming abundantly clear, far more clear, that we have to tax billionaires, that we have to tax corporations, that we have to find a way to pay for this. And with this bill, it basically just kicks more debt down the road, right? I saw the budget deficit, it raises it by $3 trillion. $3 trillion. And I don't even think that's going to be accurate because I'm not sure where the other $1.9 trillion gets made up from in this bill because it should add about $4 trillion. I think maybe that's over the next 4 years, $3 trillion, 2032. And then following that, it adds more. That might be it. But it adds a lot to the debt. So like 2 more years of the debt? I don't know. But these two are interlinked where the Republicans are trying to gut programs. They're finding out it's not working. They're trying to tariff other countries to try and bring back manufacturing jobs. They gave up on that. Why? Because of serious issues in the bond market that make it impossible for the United States to actually implement these. And we're watching in real time as Trump is failing. He's failing horrifically. And the Republican policies are failing horrifically. And the chance or the belief that they have that we can somehow salvage their system of beliefs is rooted entirely in tariffs and a budget bill to give more money to billionaires. And it's going to fail long term. And so I think that we're really watching the death throes of republicanism where they're just they're infighting like crazy. They don't know who is going to come out on top here. They're not sure. There are some Republicans that are we're not spending enough money in certain areas. There are other Republicans that are this is adding too much to the deficit. We need more cuts. And then you have, just Republicans in general all across the board are just we don't know if we're going to vote for it. We're going to know because it's a large giveaway to billionaires. And it will not stir up jobs, anything to that degree. It's just going to add more to the deficit. But you really have this situation where in real time, Trump is figuring out exactly why he can't do things. And you're watching as Republicans are basically cheering on his failures in the most chaotic way possible. And it's very clear to me and obvious to me this is not going to work. The long-term economic situation for the United States is really going to be of decline. I don't know if it's unfortunate, but at least for his policy's sake, but it's a failure. It's a failure. I mean, he went from 145% to 9% because it was going to destroy the fucking global economy in a matter of months. And now we're going to watch a long, steady decline because of the tariff increase. That's what we're going to watch. We're going to watch a long, steady economic decline. Inevitably, I think he'll give up on the tariffs completely, especially if he's willing to back down that far off the tariffs. But we'll still be in a period of economic decline. The question is whether or not they're going to recognize it. And I've talked about this before. I think the problem for the Trump administration is if they recognize it soon enough, they can stop economic catastrophe. If they don't recognize it soon enough, no, we're headed for economic catastrophe. $3,000 per family of four reduction in spending is going to be what, 3, 4, 5% negative GDP growth. It would be pretty significant. And yeah, and then we'll see if Trump rewinds or if he changes his policy. But right now we're just headed for long-term economic decline. If the tariff war gets ramped back up, which I suspect it won't because of the bond market, then yeah. But I don't know if you guys have checked the bond market. The interest rates are skyrocketing because people are selling off bonds around the world because they don't have any faith in the U.S. anymore. And I think that's a big problem too, is that because the United States, nobody has faith in the United States. And just to point out, I talked about this. If people do not have faith and businesses do not have faith in Trump, if they do not have faith in Trump, then we're going to watch economic decline. And that economic decline won't reverse because nobody believes that he's going to do the right thing. So that's really where we are. And I also think there's a component of this where the economy, interestingly enough, is in large part being held up by pro-Trump Americans that are business owners. Why? Because they don't understand the effects that tariffs are going to have, because they are small business owners, because they don't really see what the financial toll is going to be to their business or the economic outcome, because they're just business owners. They're not economists. And so you have an entire section of the U.S. population literally making moves and growing their business based off of promises Trump told them, not the economic reality. And so my fear is that if we go on for, say, 12 months of economic decline, that when this really starts to touch businesses, when it's really like, okay, this is going to start shutting down businesses, we're going to watch a lot of them sort of hold on to the last minute. And then we're going to watch just a catastrophe across the board where it just all sort of sets in at once. It won't be like, boom, everything shuts down. But like we'll watch like an acceleration of that where businesses are shutting down, growth is slowing. And people are realizing, especially the Trump supporters, believe he's a god, that he is going to cause serious economic hardship at that point, and then they have to start selling off stuff. And I think that's the big fear for me, is that we have this long economic decline into a really just a sell-off. I think that's probably what we're headed for. Again, if they realize it sooner, we won't have to deal with this. But I think one thing is completely clear, which is you cannot be a Trump supporter and say that Donald Trump has success around the globe with his deals, because very clearly everything's failed. Everything's failed. Everything's failed. So that's really where we're at. And yeah, there's no deal that he's made that somehow that's spectacular. There's nothing there. And when they figure it out and we start watching declines happen, and you're in a position where, Americans and businesses are forced to sell stuff off, where their delusions have sort of gone away, then yeah. And someone in the comments said, well, they're not going to blame Trump. They might not blame Trump, but they're certainly going to have to sell stuff off. And that's kind of the fear. But just a catastrophe. Trump is handcuffed, economically very handcuffed, and he's realizing it. And it's costing people everything for him being slow to the learning curve here. But yeah, basically, I just want to point this out. Like, if you're a Trump supporter, we said tariffs would not work. We said this would happen, and it has. Just saying.